What is going on, everyone? This is Miles with Windows Central Gaming, and welcome to the 29th episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined by my buddy and one half of the iconic Xbox 2 podcast, Mr. Rand Al Thor 19. How you doing on this fine Saturday morning, my man?
Miles. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
Aww.
And, I only get up this early so I can spend my early Saturday afternoon with Miles Dompier,
Oh.
you know?
No, I appreciate you. I know this is a little earlier than you're typically up and about. You're living that rock star lifestyle, staying up as late as you want, getting up whenever, swimming in those YouTube millions. So I appreciate you taking some time to hang out.
I wish. I'm a night owl, so I'm usually up late, and I don't necessarily get up early, at least too early. So, I'm trying to get my energy to come to me right now because it's, I literally woke up like 10 minutes ago, but I'm here, man. I'm here to talk about whatever you have planned for us because I don't got to host. I don't got to do anything. I just got to answer questions, I suppose.
That's right. It's been a busy week, so we'll have tons of stuff to talk about. I know you've been running the podcast gauntlet, so I got to give you some credit for your stamina this week because you've done 5 already, maybe more, and you're doing another one tomorrow with the Iron Lords, which in of itself is a gauntlet of its own. So I appreciate you coming on. And most people here, they know who you are, but for the folks that don't, can you give people a breakdown of who Rand is, where they can find you, and why you love Xbox?
Who am I? I'm just a regular dude I'm nothing special about me whatsoever. I named myself after a main character in the Wheel of Time. Which is getting a show on Amazon finally. I cannot wait, Miles, for people to see the true Randall Thor. You know what I mean? I guess like my claim to fame is I hit 1 million gamer score at E3 2016 with Phil Spencer, which was super cool. I started the YouTube channel, and I've been doing that since 2016, youtube.com/RandallThor19. And, I mostly make videos about Xbox and Xbox-related things. Channel's doing pretty good. And why do I love Xbox? That's an interesting question, Miles. I love video games.
Good answer.
Right?
I love that.
So it's just, I think Xbox, I don't know, like when it was really like I loved Halo, right? Like I was on Xbox because of Halo. And then like their franchises and like their controller and their achievement system and everything kind of just spoke more to me than PlayStation at the time did, because I was a big PlayStation fan for the PS1 and PS2 gens, and something about the 360 generation just really spoke to me in a way that previous gens really didn't. And so I just was like became this huge fan. Really appreciated what they were doing, fell in love with like Gears and Fable, and I wanted to see, I don't know, like I felt a bigger connection to Xbox than I ever had to PlayStation. And I kind of want to see Xbox succeed. I want everybody to succeed, but I kind of want to see Xbox succeed because I don't know, like I feel like a lot of people out there take them for granted, or they are viewed as like the punching bag of the industry. And I don't know, like I would like for them for to just kind of prove everybody wrong, all these haters and doubters out there to be wrong and stuff. I don't know. So I love gaming. I like things Xbox are doing. I think Game Pass is incredible. I'm psyched for all these studios because it just means more games for us. Love the direction that Xbox is heading in, but it's all about gaming for me in general, Miles.
See, that's why I appreciate you, Rand. You and I kind of share a similar gaming history. I was all over the place. My very first console, Super Nintendo. Loved it. Was all in on Nintendo. Next up, I got the PS1. Crash Bandicoot blew my mind. Loved PlayStation. Final Fantasy Tactics, Symphony of the Night. I was blown away by what PlayStation was doing. Then the OG Xbox hit, and I played stuff like Halo, like you. That rocked my world. Hunter the Reckoning. I was like, what is going on? And so from that point, as I kind of turned into a teen, I just kind of gravitated towards Xbox for the social aspects of it. So again, I appreciate you. I appreciate your kind of history with Xbox.
You know what I don't love, Miles?
What? What don't you love, Rand? This is
Nintendo.
Don't. You want to go? You want to go down this rabbit hole right here, right now? Maybe we'll touch on that later. But
everybody knows that, and I usually play that up. So
you don't actually hate Nintendo. You love Nintendo deep down. You try to play cool to the Xbox kids who are like, Nintendo's trash.
Well, because it's different kind of thing. Most people are like PlayStation versus Xbox, console war, and I'm just like, Nintendo sucks.
Ooh, spicy take.
You don't really hear that ever because it's different.
It's okay.
What does Nintendo do? Like Breath of the Wild 2? Who cares? Metroid Dread. It's just a 2D game where you just go from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen. Ooh, that sounds really exciting.
I don't condone any of these takes from Randall Thor. Just want to get that out there. I do agree though that Metroid Dread didn't do anything for me. I love Metroidvanias, but Metroid Dread in particular looked fine. Breath of the Wild 2 though, I'm in. I'm ready. I'm ready to play that at 720p, 22 FPS on my Switch. Let's go.
You're not going to play it on the Nintendo Super Switch?
I mean, whenever that comes out, whenever that's revealed, unless this has just been like a well-cultivated Mandela effect situation where it never existed and it was never going to exist. We have just willed it into existence in our own minds. But yeah, the day that comes out, I don't care how much it costs. I'm buying it. Day one. Let's go. I love Nintendo. I'm not afraid to say it, Rand. I'm not afraid to shout it from the rooftops. Sure, sometimes they're awful. Sometimes they do things that I absolutely hate. The 3D Mario Collection. No. I did not buy it. I never will buy it. And that was absolute nonsense that I couldn't get behind. But the second a new Pokemon comes out, Pokemon Legends Arceus, day one. I'm there. I'm buying it.
Okay.
So, anyway, I was, trying to give you a compliment here before you started dumping on Nintendo. But, so I appreciate you in the space. Before I was kind of in the industry, if you will, I used to listen to podcasts like Xbox too, consistently. You and Jez were somebody I would just listen to casually while I was at work. So it's what you guys have been doing is awesome. It's awesome to see you guys continue to grow. And it's awesome that now in this day and age, I get to sit down and chat with Randall Thor 19, the man with the millie. And the community's grown and it's just been great to see. So got to give a quick shout out to the almost 200 people rocking with us already. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're new to the show, we do this live every Saturday. If you're watching after the fact, really appreciate that as well. If you're digging it, hit that like button, share it out, and let's get this party started. Some housekeeping before we get into the main topics of the show today, which will be the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, acquisitions, and our overall thoughts on Summer Game Fest and E3 2021. The Windows Central Discord is live. It's popping off. We got a great community there. We're going to be leveraging some questions as well from that community. So if you have questions you want answered on the show, drop them in the Windows Central Gaming Questions channel. And we're going to start the show with an interesting question that I want to get your take on, Rand.
Okay.
So we have Destitute Tehal Bedict, who says, I was thinking, with the announcement of Halo Infinite multiplayer being free to play, and with the big push for Game Pass, it seems like these things are disconnected. How does Halo multiplayer being free to play push people to become Game Pass subscribers? This seems like a good thing for the gamer, but maybe a little off base for Xbox based on their strategy. Do you think there will be Game Pass Ultimate incentives in Halo Infinite? So
interesting question.
I agree.
Because I've actually had one of my buddies who works at Xbox. I've had this discussion with them because it's definitely the best for the game. Like Halo Infinite being free to play is the best thing for that game, but is it necessarily the best thing for Xbox Game Pass? And I would say the answer to that question is probably no, right? Because with Game Pass, like you look at it like this. Uh, People love the multiplayer of Halo. Many people, there's probably going to be more people that are going to play the multiplayer of Halo than the campaign of Halo, and that's just a
Yeah.
fact. I'm not saying one's better than the other, but in the long term, more people will engage with the multiplayer of Halo Infinite. And if you had the multiplayer paid for, or just as part of a bundle of the campaign, then anybody who is interested in the multiplayer of Halo would probably think about subscribing to Game Pass. So it would drive that effect. However, since it's free to play, you don't need to subscribe to Game Pass to play it. You only need to subscribe to Game Pass if you want to play the campaign. So, like I said, being free to play helps the game out tremendously. They made the right decision for the game, but is it the right decision for Game Pass in general? I don't think so. But, however, we don't know the plans that they have in place to sort of synergize between Game Pass and Halo. I expect there'll be things like, we already know they do perks. If you're Game Pass Ultimate, you get perks for certain games like extra currency in Warframe, or some like armor stuff and whatever other game, right? So I expect there to really push, like, hey, if you're Game Pass Ultimate member, here's some perks for Halo, whatever. There's rumors, and I don't know how true these are, but like, if you subscribe to Game Pass, maybe you get the first couple battle passes for free. So if they work it along those lines, where if you subscribe, you get the battle pass for free, then maybe that will incentivize more people to actually subscribe to the service to get those battle passes, and essentially, maybe even try out the campaign. But I would imagine many people won't, because they're just gonna be like, I'm just playing the game. So it's interesting. I wonder how the conversations were between like the Halo team and if the Game Pass team, if any. If it was just like, you need to do what's best for your game, and what's best for Halo is free to play, even if that means Game Pass isn't maximized to its potential. Do you agree though, Miles? Like,
Yeah, no, you bring up some excellent points and some stuff that I totally agree with. It is kind of counterintuitive to the push of Halo Infinite. Like you said, there are people who buy Halo for the multiplayer. The campaigns are usually great. The campaign's going to be great, and the people who want that will subscribe to Game Pass for it. But there are going to be millions and millions of people just playing the Halo Infinite multiplayer for free. So I think if I'm Xbox and I want to incentivize Game Pass subscriptions, like you mentioned, those perks, we know how the battle passes work. So all of the progression in the game is going to be tied to a battle pass. So nothing so far is going to be loot box or purchase outright. So if I'm Xbox, if I want to incentivize that, I have a free tier that's fine. People see the free tier, they can get progress, they can get rewards, but I have a stacked, amazing, incredible battle pass that offers way more rewards, awesome cosmetics. And then I tell the people playing free to play, no matter where they're playing, if you want these seasonal battle passes, sign up for Game Pass Ultimate. That is bundled in. Maybe not. I would love for it to be every single battle pass moving forward. If you remain a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, you get every single battle pass. That would be huge. That would be a huge value, and there would be people who sign up for Game Pass because of that. Because with Halo being free to play, the game is going to be massive. It's the first time ever that it's launching on console, PC, and essentially mobile at the same time. So it's gonna be a big deal. So that is the way they can incentivize it. Will they do that? I hope at least for the very first battle pass at launch they do. And if they don't, I think that's personally a huge misstep with their approach to building up Game Pass.
yeah, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. I do think they'll have hooks into Game Pass for the multiplayer, because I think that would just be the smart thing to do.
I agree.
The question is, what will they be, and will a battle pass be enough to get people to subscribe because you may not be interested in the battle pass. You know, like I played Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Warzone rather for like 250 hours. I never once bought any of those battle passes because be as it may, and I know this is going to sound sacrilegious to people.
Oh no, don't.
I don't care about cosmetics. I don't really
No.
care what my character looks like. I know some people really put a lot of time and effort, and oh, I want my character to look cool, or I want this cool ass gun skin, or any of this stuff. Like, none of that stuff matters to me. Like, and I'm not going to spend money to make something look cool. So I never spent a single dollar. So I played Warzone for 200 some odd hours. Didn't spend a single penny on the battle pass or anything. You know, so never spent any money on Overwatch. Like I know a lot of people do, but like I don't know, man. Like for me, maybe I'm just like the complete opposite of most people. But when it comes to these, and I'm grateful because I can play a lot of these, like Apex Legends, didn't spend a single penny. Played that game for over 100 hours. PUBG, outside of like owning the game, didn't spend any money on cosmetics because I think it's all just worthless. So I know a lot of people really want to customize their characters and they're willing to spend the money. I mean, look how much money Fortnite makes because people want to get the cool skin, right? Want to get the Captain America skin or the Wolverine skin or the Halo Master Chief skin or whatever skin you want that costs money. But like, I'll never spend my money on that stuff ever. Maybe I'm just built different. I don't care about cosmetics in that way. And maybe there are tons of people that, you know, will look at Halo and be like, I want to express myself, so I'm going to get these battle passes or whatever, and that's how they'll make all their money. But like, I'm telling you right now, unless I get the battle passes for free because I'm a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, I will not be spending a single cent on their battle passes whatsoever in Halo. I didn't spend any money. I didn't spend any real money on Halo 5 requisitions. You know, I didn't spend any real money on Gears multiplayer for any of that stuff. That's just not me. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the beauty of the free to play model that they're adopting, because it used to be really annoying back in the day when you'd have a multiplayer suite come out and then there'd be a new map packs and you'd have to pay 15, 20 bucks to get the new maps, and you'd have some friends in your friend group who had them and some friends who didn't, and there was just this disconnect where your friends who, you know, we normally play together, but because some people didn't buy the new maps, you're not playing the new maps. So I like that. I like that like in your case, you don't have to spend a dime to get anything. I think generally speaking, the people who go all in on these games do like the cosmetics. I'm sure they have data that shows people are more willing to buy these things once they spend more time with the game. But to your credit here, you can play Warzone for 200 hours, not pay a penny, still have a great time. Doesn't affect the gameplay. Gameplay is still tight, fun. Halo gameplay will be tight, will be fun, and you don't have to pay anything. I am just hoping with their push for Game Pass that they leverage that in a cool, exciting way. And it's, you know, with it being free to play, they really need to, because their goal, we know, is to build Game Pass as fast as possible. That is their main objective in life right now. And yeah, to Destitute's credit here, that approach is counterintuitive when you're trying to bulk up Game Pass numbers. So I got to give a quick shout out to the 330 people rocking with us already. Stoked, appreciate it. It's been a long week of Xbox chat, so I appreciate everyone who's hanging out, tuning in. I see Eternal Umbra, I see Mr. Joanna Dark, I see Brian Hopkins, Samuel Tolbert in the house. We got a squad rolling deep, and I'm going to get to some super chats real quick here before we transition to our next topic. Dovahkeen89 coming in and saying, is Jez being secretly pushed away? Love you guys. No, absolutely not. I know I was on Xbox 2 with Rand yesterday. Jez, you know, was feeling a little under the weather. No one can replace Jez.
Nobody can replace Jez.
Nobody can. Jez is
even Miles with a horrible British accent can't replace.
I mean,
Jez.
That was a top tier British accent. Okay, maybe not Jez's, you know, style, but Yeah, if you guys watched Xbox 2, I did an awful Jez Corden impersonation. And I don't regret it. I don't regret a damn second of it. Mr. Joanna Dark says, "Hello, fellas. Big fan of the man with the million. I enjoy your content, Rand." Miles,
Thank
you
you.
are the dude. I just want to show my support as always. Mr. Joanna Dark, absolutely love this dude. Everyone give him a round of applause because he's one of the nicest, most supportive dudes in this community by far.
100%. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for rocking and checking out Xbox Chaturdays with Miles.
Oh.
Rising star
Oh,
in the scene coming up. So
Coming.
it's always good. It's always good to support new creators, and Miles is maybe one of the best
Oh, wow.
up and comers.
Wow, I appreciate that. Brian Hopkins, super chat as well. Another amazing, incredible, supportive dude. Always hit me up on Twitter. Having Halo Multi as free to play was a masterclass move. Halo hasn't been as strong as it once was. Should be a major boon. Look at Warzone.
Well, yeah, we've talked about it before, but in this day and age, your multiplayer needs to be free. That's why there's a little question mark about Battlefield, because look at Battlefield's competing with all these games that already have entrenched user bases, and I'm not saying Battlefield isn't big, because it absolutely is. But a lot of people weren't burned by Battlefield 5. They didn't like it. They lost some users. Their battle royale didn't do anything for them. And when you're competing in this day and age of when the biggest games on your platform are all free to play, and you have Halo, you have to compete by being free to play. So it just makes the most sense. It's like, because if you can't compete with Fortnite and any stretch of the imagination without being free and without being on as many platforms as you can be on. You're just holding yourself back. So 100% is the best case scenario for Halo. Being free to play and being on as many platforms as possible. Hell, I'm sure they probably would love that game to be on PlayStation if they could put it there. You know what I mean? Simply because the number of users. With that said, Battlefield's in that weird position because all the other games are free to play, or at least have a free to play mode like Warzone, right? And they just have a multiplayer mode that's $70 for next gen. And you kind of wonder yourself, it's like, is that really gonna fly in this day and age? Like, are people who are playing Fortnite and Call of Duty and Apex Legends and Rocket League and Rainbow Six Siege going to start playing Battlefield, like, it's and spend the money on it instead of just trying it out because it's free? Like, they might be in a really, as much as I love Battlefield and I think 2042 is going to be like an incredible experience, they might be in a really, really tough position this holiday between all the free to play games, where people might look at it and be like, why am I paying for this?
Yeah.
Because now people are conditioned to essentially expect multiplayer to be free. And it's like, here's Battlefield offering a $70 thing, and that's it. And people will be like, you know what? Call of Duty offers all this and more for the same price. I'm going to be interested in seeing how that all plays out. And if Microsoft and EA can maybe, come to the table and be like, you might need Game Pass. Or, and if they would, like, come to a agreement on that. I'm not sure if that'll happen, but I'm interested to see how this holiday plays out for Battlefield, because maybe people are like, that trailer looks sick. I want to play that. 128, player servers or whatever it is, right? And people are okay with paying for just the multiplayer, or people are like, you know what? That's too expensive. Like, why am I paying for all this stuff when I have all these other free-to-play options? And the EA made a big mistake when it comes to the pricing of Battlefield, right?
Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I was somebody who went into the reveal knowing that Battlefield 2042 was coming, expecting not to care. Quite frankly, I was expecting to see a new Battlefield and be like, all right, here we go again. Here's another one. But that trailer, I will say, the reveal was absolutely fire. They got me hyped. They managed to get me hyped and sold on the Battlefield experience. 128 players, the wingsuit, the tornado, the ridiculous action. I want to play that. And now it's in a weird position where it's not launching in Xbox Game Pass right now, but they are advertising the 10-hour trial of Battlefield 2042. And I have friends who have told me that they will play the 10-hour trial and that is it. And then they are done. They are not playing that game anymore if that is how it plays out. And I'm curious to see how it compares to Halo Infinite, Call of Duty, which are free to play. Like you said, Fortnite, the biggest, most popular, and longest running multiplayer games, especially first-person shooters, have been free to play. Apex Legends, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Warzone. And then Battlefield's coming out of nowhere with a $70 price tag for multiplayer only. And then guess what, Rand? They're charging a year one pass. If you want the new content, you want the new maps, you're spending more money. You're paying for the first year of Battlefield. If you want everything, you're paying $100, which in this day and age is such an antiquated, weird approach to multiplayer. I am legitimately curious if they are just trying to cash in on the current gen console hype, being like, this is the first Battlefield on PS5 and Series X. So people are willing to pay the $70 and willing to buy the Season 1 pass. But are they? Are they willing to do that when they can wait a few more weeks and play Halo Infinite for free, can play Call of Duty for free? Or are they going to see a spike at launch because they're launching at a good time when there's not much competition? And then once your Halos launch, once your Call of Duties launch, their player base just tanks. Who's going to stick with Battlefield with this price model is my question. I'm not faulting anyone who says, to me, this is worth $100. This looks amazing, because it does. Battlefield 2042 looks phenomenal. I am ready. I will be there day one. That being said, I don't know if I'm gonna buy the year one pass. I don't think I'm doing that. I shouldn't have to do that to get the new content, because that's what Gears of War 2 was doing on the Xbox 360. We are so far separated from that approach, and it's weird to me that that's what they're doing, and they think that that's okay. And again, there's been some heated conversations online about there's no single player campaign. To me, I don't really care. I have never beaten a Battlefield campaign in my life, never will. I know a lot of people who feel the same way. For the people who want it, I understand that that is a detriment to you and your purchase, but that's not the biggest issue here. The biggest issue is that this is essentially $100 for the complete Battlefield year one package. So they're planning to charge for a year two package, etc. So you're right. You're 100% right, Rand. It will be interesting to see how this plays out. And I have a strong suspicion that it will not perform as well compared to the likes of Halo Infinite and Call of Duty. So with that being said, we are going to transition into our first kind of major topic of the show here, and that's kind of briefly touching on all the chaos, all the games that we've seen over the last week and a half. Obviously, the highlight of this week has been Xbox and Bethesda at E3 2021. A lot of buzz, a lot of energy surrounding that. But I want to rewind even before that and talk a little bit about Summer Game Fest, because I'm curious to get your takes on Jeff Keighley's show. There's been a lot of people who've, been on Twitter, been in the chats on podcasts I've been on, who've been incredibly harsh of Summer Game Fest and what was shown there. So real quick, what were your overall thoughts on Summer Game Fest?
Summer Game Fest was serviceable, I suppose. I don't know. I'm a fan of Jeff Keighley. I know he gets a lot of flack sometimes. I do like his Game Awards show he puts on. But yeah, this year's Summer Games Fest, I know like he was doing the infighting with E3, and he was, I told you it would be this way when most of the shows weren't very good.
Yeah,
but like his show wasn't like anything really to write home about. And the only reason people look at it a little bit fondly is because it was saved by Elden Ring at the end.
Absolutely.
And honestly,
highlight.
if Elden Ring wasn't there, most people would be like, man, Summer Games Fest was just what the thing I don't like about Jeff is he relies too much on celebrities and musical guests. like I don't think that's necessarily needed in this day and age. You look at like what Xbox is doing, and you see the wall to wall 90-minute trailer, right? For games. But I guess that doesn't really translate well if you're trying to be the host with the most. Jeff Keighley, where you cut in after every trailer and you kind of talk about some stuff. So I guess that really doesn't help you build your brand.
Yeah.
Um, so you need those sort of things where you bring in celebrities and you do musical acts. I'm just kind of tired of that at that point, and a lot of the reveals weren't very interesting outside of Elden Ring. I just think this year was impacted greatly by COVID. There's not a lot of games that were in a position to announce anything, and even if they were, maybe they weren't in the best. They couldn't be shown off in a way that the studios wanted them to be shown off. So I think this year's kind of just was just like like teams just throwing their hands up, like, well, we don't really have much. And that kind of translates to all the other shows. You look at all like every other show outside of Nintendo and Xbox, and it was just like, you didn't need to be here. There was no point to any of this. And that kind of relates to Summer Games Fest. Just not a lot of games to announce. Just kind of boring interludes in between announcements. And luckily for Jeff, Bandai Namco felt for whatever reason, they would rather put their Elden Ring baby with him instead of with Xbox. And that kind of sort of saved the conversation. So I appreciate what Jeff does. Hopefully he can keep on doing Summer Games Fest. Hopefully in the future it's better paced. I don't really need to have the musical guests. I don't really need to have the celebrities. But I think you need more significant announcements than what he had to keep people's interest, because people get real tired of that stuff fast, right? They'll be like, man, this is boring. But I do appreciate Jeff for what he does in the industry. I think this year just wasn't good for a variety of reasons. You know what I mean?
I agree. Like, a lot of people completely wrote off Summer Game Fest ahead of the show. They were like, I'm not going to watch this. I don't care about this. Jeff Keighley sucks. Jeff Keighley's a Sony pony, or what, however they want to spin it. I definitely don't think Jeff is a Sony pony. I think Jeff is someone who really does love the gaming industry, loves gaming, wants to put on the best show he can, but there's a lot of competition, and his show is pretty new, so he's still trying to figure out cadence, build those relationships, and lock down those big announcements. So yeah, I thought the start of his show was pretty great. Had some good announcements. The Jeff Goldblum bit had me dying, like with Jeff like trying to pronounce Jeff Keighley's name at the start. There were a few legitimately funny, cool moments in there. But then yeah, we get to Weezer. Not to knock Weezer, but I don't want to see Weezer play live. I'm sorry. I don't care about Weezer. I don't want to see that. So again, if you're a big Weezer fan, maybe that was cool. Maybe that was a big get hype moment. But I didn't hear one person who was like, yeah, Weezer killed it. Weezer was the highlight of that show. And I totally agree that Jeff does like the star power. Getting Ryan Reynolds on there. That was just a weird little thing to show a movie trailer for a movie about video games, which I guess is kind of related to what he's doing. But yeah, middle pacing of that show was super long in the tooth. And we had some cool announcements, and then we got to a bunch of, here's Overwatch 2 characters spinning in slow motion. We're going to talk about their hair textures. Do that in a deep dive.
What's the point? What's the point of that?
Nothing. Just to bore me. If you're someone who doesn't like Overwatch, you're checking out. You're done with that show at that point. If you love Overwatch, even still, I think you're kind of like, okay, this isn't where I wanted to see it, but okay. So there were some standouts. There were some highlights from Summer Game Fest. The show wasn't awful by any means, especially compared to some of the other stuff that we saw. But I think people just want to be really hard on Jeff. And I think he's doing a decent job. He's trying his best to put on a really good show. I'm expecting some really great stuff from the Game Awards. And he's still trying to find his groove with Summer Game Fest.
Let me ask you this, Miles. What do you think happens when E3 comes back in physical form, potentially next year? Back in the same place it always has been. And do you think Jeff still tries to do a Summer Games Fest? Will a Summer Games Fest be digital only, or will that be recorded in a physical? Like how does this kind of translate into a post-COVID world, right? Because like, okay, you have the digital thing and everybody's doing the digital thing, and you can do that, but people are going to want to transition to the in-person stuff. Does people forget about Summer Games Fest because E3 is coming back and it's going to be a convention again, and everybody's going to be, flying out to LA, seeing all the cool games and stuff and the live press conferences? Is there still room for Summer Games Fest at that point if Jeff isn't? Will it be keeping still a digital format, or will it be like, hey, we rented out a theater like we do for the video game awards? Like, what do you think's going to go on there?
I'll get to that in just a sec. Gotta give a quick shout out to the 510 people rocking with us. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, if you're new to the show, we're doing this live every Saturday. If you're digging the show, hit the like button, share it out. I also want to give a quick shout out to Colt Eastwood and Jeff Grubb in the chat, giving Rand a hard time for not being on cam. I've been fighting for it, guys. I'm trying to make it happen, okay? I'm trying to get Rand's beautiful mug with me on this show. And I think we're going to do it someday. I'm not going to give you a time frame, but someday we're doing it. We're making it happen.
I mean, what is Jeff? What do I want to be on camera and have an Advance War hoodie on or something? Come on. And Cold Eastwood, like, get out of here.
Yeah, okay. Some love in the air, obviously. But to answer your question, if I'm Jeff, I'm saying, okay, Summer Game Fest is an in-person event, so I can mosh to Weezer next year. Me, you, Colt Eastwood, Jeff Grubb in the pit throwing bows to Island in the Sun by Weezer. That's the world that I want to live in. And I think, in a post-COVID world, I think that's what you have to do, because that's the excitement, the energy. Everyone wants to get together and share that moment. Doing it digitally is cool, it's convenient, but nothing really matches that in-person experience, which is a lot of people have fond memories of with E3, and then Summer Game Fest could potentially be something like that. Could be a supplement to that week of hype. But it will be interesting to see if that's what he does. I imagine he will. I don't imagine he's going to stop or slow down the momentum of Summer Game Fest, especially with, again, after E3 this year, the conversations of, is E3 relevant? And there's some hot debates in the community. And I guess I'll just ask you that. At this day and age, is E3 going to be around for 5 more years, Rand, in your opinion?
I mean, it probably will. I mean, it's not as relevant as it once was, say, back in 2016. But they definitely are trying to still kind of say it's a thing, So I think it sticks around. I think when you have Microsoft and Nintendo supporting it in the way they are, like it'll still be around for a bit. It's just I think you'll see more and more publishers and studios kind of like leave and do their own thing. Which is a shame, because E3 was always like, I don't know, like it was always something so cool to look forward to every single year, and now it's kind of like this year E3 was just a train wreck of awfulness outside of Microsoft and Nintendo, where you're like, think to yourself, yeah, does this even really need to be a thing anymore? Do we really need to have E3 if you're gonna trot out that Ubisoft conference or that Take-Two thing, or Randy Pitchford doing his thing with Kevin? Like, do we really need that anymore? Like,
Randy,
I don't know. I mean, maybe getting back to a centralized location and having live press conferences and hands-on stuff will save E3, quote unquote, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, I think next year will be the ultimate test of E3's true relevance, quite frankly, because everything's going to be in person. Obviously, this year, like you said, it's weird. COVID impact what can be shown, who was ready to show things. Everyone wanted to pretend like things were going back to normal. So you had, when you looked at it on paper, you had, oh, damn, Capcom's going to be there. Bandai's going to be there. Xbox is going to be there. Nintendo's going to be. You had all these major publishers who signed on to do E3, and you're like, wow, this is going to be incredible. And then Capcom, for example, absolutely love Capcom. So one of my favorite publishers, some of my favorite franchises of all time, they came with one of the most pointless shows I've ever seen in my life. They announced the Resident Evil Village DLC in a way that said, "Hey, we were not going to make Resident Evil Village DLC, but we literally just started it because the game sold well." And it's like, why was this a showcase? And then no shade on Ace Attorney, but I don't want 8 minutes of Ace Attorney. I would never need 8 minutes of Ace Attorney in my entire life. So it was weird. And I wish more publishers were okay saying, you know what, we don't need to be at E3 this year. I know there's a lot of pressure to be in the conversations, be in the spotlight, but I wish more people were like, you know, COVID messed with us. COVID really screwed up our schedule and we were not comfortable showing things. And I wish that was okay, but everyone was fighting to make it seem like everything's fine, E3's good, gaming's good, our teams are not struggling and stressed and under a ton of anxiety, everything's okay. And I just wish more people were saying, you know what, things are not okay. We're not quite on the other side of this yet. And that was my conflict with E3 this year. On one hand, it felt so good to see these teams, Xbox and Nintendo, and all these teams coming together and celebrating gaming and being excited. That felt so good because this year has been a nightmare and it's been awful and there's been no hope at the end of this tunnel. So on one hand, that felt really good. And then on the other hand, I was grossed out because people were trying to downplay the severity, especially in other countries like Japan, where it's still a big deal right now. And it was just a conflict for me. Like we all want things to go back to normal. We all really do. We so badly, and I get that. But for some people, we're not there yet. And so that's why I say next year will be the true test, because we'll have some time. We will hopefully be completely on the other side of it for everyone around the world, not just the United States. And it'll be interesting to see how big of a way E3 comes back next year.
I got a question for you, Miles.
Oh, hit me.
You know, with some of these shows not being as good as they could have been, could it have been like the Square Enix one and the Capcom one, right, being as bad as they were? Could an explanation be, well, there's rumors that PlayStation's having an event next month, and we know how tight they are with Square Enix, and we know how tight they can be with Capcom? Do you think it's possible that some, announcement or new trailers for Final Fantasy 16 or for Spoken or anything new from Capcom that maybe they could have shown to made their presentations better were essentially being held off to showcase during a PlayStation show?
I think that's an excellent question, Rand, and I think there could be some legitimacy to that. PlayStation right now, we kind of know what their slate is when it comes to first party. So they're going to be leaning heavily into big third party partnerships, acquisitions, exclusives, or even just reveals to kind of make their showcases pop in a big way. Because first party wise, we know most of what they're working on, and we know a lot of that is not coming soon. So yeah, partnering with Square, excellent strategy. Partnering with Capcom, these publishers you've partnered with in the past for big reveals, makes a lot of sense. So I think there could be some truth to that, and that could be the reality. I still don't think that means, and especially in the case of Capcom, like if that was the case, just you can skip E3, put out a blog post for these 4 games you talked about, and you're good. Move on. Square Enix at least had a couple things to show. Guardians of the Galaxy was a highlight for some people. Final Fantasy Chad Chaos Edition. Some people seem to think that looks fun, but for me, not a lot of standouts. And if they are saving like Forspoken, Final Fantasy 16 for PlayStation, that's really good for PlayStation. That'll be some big highlights and some headlines for them with this rumored showcase next month. I'm gonna get to a quick super chat here from Eternal Umbra. Look, this dude's just a sweetheart. Yo, just wanted to show love to both of you guys. 2 of the best voices in the community, and I'll always be there to support you. Keep growing. That means so much, dude. Really, really does. Really appreciate the kind words. Yeah, a lot of really awesome, nice people in my feed on Twitter this week as well. And it's been a nightmarish 14 days if you're covering video games. Super chat from Binyabik. Summer of games last year was the worst ever. This year was whatever. I don't mind who does it, but do one big event, show all the stuff, and be done. So are you someone who's in the same camp as Binyabik ran? Do you want everything dumped at once? Do you want one massive show for the year and then radio silence for the rest? Or are you okay with things being spread out a little bit?
I didn't really like last year because of how everything was spread out. So I do prefer kind of that centralized week where everything kind of drops. I do like that better as a fan. As a content creator, well, like you can make an argument that last year was good because you didn't know like when you could or when they were going to do stuff, so you could you could speculate about certain things. Like I remember last year we were all speculating like, when's Xbox's show? Is it June? Is it July? What's going to be? Oh, they have 2 shows. Well, what's going to be at the May one? Or so it was a little bit better in that regards. But as a fan, like I just like all the information packed into 1 week, rather than like, well, someone might be going the first week of June, and someone might be going the last week of June, and then someone's going early July, and then someone's going mid July. It loses kind of the it's like, I don't know, appeal to me at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I do prefer it being packed together.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn. I do love the really big shows. I think having a big show or a few big shows over the year is exciting. You get the energy, you get the buzz. But on the same hand, I love Xbox's strategy since the launch of the Series X and S. They have done an amazing job, and this is something I cannot give the team enough credit for, of being in the headlines week after week after week after week. There is something that gets somebody talking or writing about Xbox, and for them, that is huge. They are keeping this momentum in a way that I've never seen a video game publisher or company do before. Like, their consistency this year has been absolutely absurd. So for me, that makes me think that, as big as E3 was for Xbox, they didn't show you everything that they're going to show you this year. They are going to do a really solid job keeping you interested, keeping you looking at what Xbox is doing, and keeping you looking towards the future. So yeah, I do love the big shows, but I also really love the way that Xbox specifically has been in the conversations constantly. They are absolutely crushing their cadence of information drops. And yeah, it's really exciting to see it unfold. So we are going to transition into Xbox E3 a little bit. But before we do that, before we kind of give our overall thoughts on the Xbox and Bethesda E3 showcase, I want to do something a little different here, Rand. We're all talking about, who won E3, this, that, and the other. But what is one game that you think did not get enough attention between Summer Game Fest and E3 this year? One game not enough people are talking about.
Interesting. One game that didn't get enough attention. See, I've kind of already forgotten what was at Summer Games Fest. Can we bring up a list of the games announced at Summer Games Fest?
Oh, yeah. Let's see.
Let's see. Let me Summer.
Yeah, see if you can find a list.
Because I've already forgotten what was announced at Summer Games Fest.
Yeah, there was quite a few. I know it was kind of long in the tooth, but there were quite a few reveals at Summer Game Fest as well.
See, Everything You Missed, Elden Ring, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Tiny Tina Wonder, like, you didn't really see much. Ubisoft. Don't care about Ubisoft. Okay, we got the Xbox stuff. We know it was there. Who cares about Nintendo?
All right, so while you're looking at this list, I'll highlight mine. I'll highlight the one that I strongly believe isn't getting enough buzz and attention right now, and that is Evil Dead, the game.
Ooh.
The game,
Ooh.
I know a lot of people hear that and they say, ew, a franchised game based on an obscure horror series from the 80s? No thanks. I'm out. I don't even know what Evil Dead was. I did see a lot of people on my timeline basically say that. What's Evil Dead? It broke my heart a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I died inside pretty severely to see so many people not even aware of what Evil Dead is. So that hurt. That hurt a little bit. But that being said, when I was doing the live broadcast for the Summer Game Fest kickoff show, I made a joke at the beginning saying that Homie Jeff knows what I want. Homie Jeff is going to save the two most hype reveals for the very end of the showcase. He's going to end Summer Game Fest kickoff live with Evil Dead, followed by Elden Ring. And that was exactly what this fool did. He looked straight into my eyes and said, Miles, this one's for you, dog. This one's for... And he just slam dunked the finale. So that alone, to me, that 1-2 punch, most hype moment of all of this week. I could not believe that is how he ended Summer Game Fest. So Evil Dead the game graphically looks incredible. If you're a fan, if you love the Evil Dead series, the attention to detail in these characters and these environments in this world is absolutely stunning. The people making this game are obviously huge Evil Dead nerds, and as a fellow Evil Dead nerd, that makes me really happy. That being said, it doesn't look like a really crappy, mediocre game, which I would have probably been excited about, would have been happy about. Like, if you look at the environments, the textures, the animations, this team is showing us a great game, even if you eliminate the Evil Dead element of it. If you like multiplayer horror stuff, this is one to watch, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about Evil Dead because it's obscure and old, and I guess I'm just an old head. But that's my pick.
I think people will probably talk about it more when it gets closer to release. So, looking at Summer Games Fest, I would say, like people were talking about Death Stranding director's cut, right? It's like, why is there a director's cut of Death Stranding? Like, didn't Kojima have like carte blanche to make whatever he wanted, regardless? But out of all of these ones, I think the one that stands out to me that hasn't really been getting a lot of talk about is Planet of Lana.
Ooh, yes.
I think that game looked the art style looked really great. I do kind of enjoy those Limbo-esque, Inside-esque, like adventures, and that is definitely one that caught my attention with the trailer and the art style, and makes me wonder like why that game wasn't really at the Xbox show. I mean, I guess they still wanted to give Keighley something, so yeah, maybe that game is one that really appealed to me that I don't really see a lot of people talk about, so I'll choose that one.
I am all in on that game with you. That game looks gorgeous. The watercolor art style, as soon as we faded into that first scene in the field, I was in. I was hooked. I was captivated. I wanted to know more. Once we saw the side-scrolling action, like your Limbos, I was ready for it. What they showed in that trailer was captivating, was exciting, and absolutely gorgeous. So that was definitely a huge standout for me. And again, another game that I know some people are talking about, but I want to see more people talking about it because that game looks beautiful. So yes, excellent pick, Rand. I really am on the same page.
Yes.
Okay.
Me and Miles on the same page.
See, that's why I love you. As much as you have bad takes on Nintendo, you do generally have pretty good takes that I can get on board with.
Like, like all the people out there saying Nintendo won, like what a joke. I mean, what a joke.
So here's where I'm at with Nintendo, and this will be the only section on Nintendo for those people who don't want to hear it. If you only have a Nintendo Switch, I thought Nintendo's show was excellent. I thought Nintendo's show was exciting, had a ton of new games, a lot of stuff to be excited about. If you're someone like me who has a PS5, who has a Series X, and the Switch, I thought the show was good. Breath of the Wild. Again, if there was no Breath of the Wild, and if Jeff Grubb is listening, I'm sorry, dude. If there was no Breath of the Wild, that would have been a pretty mediocre show, in my opinion.
Aren't Nintendo shows always mediocre?
Not always.
They're Nintendo.
Every now and then they have some big get hype moments. But yeah, if you only have a Switch, that was a great show. If you have everything else, it was fine. And that's where I'm at with Nintendo's show. It was one of the better ones, easily this year.
It didn't do anything for me to make me want to hook my Switch back up, because like my Switch is basically in storage at this point, because what's the point? What is there to play on the Switch? The answer to that question is nothing.
That is harsh. But as someone who has not touched their Switch in months, I can't really argue it. I want a reason to play my Switch really bad. I haven't been. I'm waiting for Pokemon Legends Arceus will probably be the next big one that pulls me in. But yeah, the last thing I played on my Switch was Joe and Mac when they added the obscure caveman Super Nintendo game Joe and Mac to their little SNES Online. That was the last time I touched my Switch. And before that, I hadn't touched my Switch in months. So I get it. I understand. So let's transition into the Xbox show here, Rand. And we've been talking about this all week, so I don't want to do a deep dive into every single game, everything shown. What I want to do briefly before we go into some more specifics about this show is I want to get your overall thoughts on how Xbox performed this year. Starting with, ahead of this show, what were your expectations from Xbox?
Okay, so my expectations for Xbox. I was. This is a tough one because I feel like I kind of knew what Microsoft was going to show, and not because like I had inside info, but mainly because like I know like what they could have ready to show. So when I projected out what I thought they would show, I was like, man, that doesn't necessarily like light a fire as like a quality show. It's like, man, they're gonna have Forza Horizon 5, but we've seen Forza. Obviously, we'll see Halo. Like Project Typhoon, Project Omen, Starfield, right? And you're like, man, there's really not going to be much else because Hellblade and Avowed and all these other titles are not going to be there. So I was a little bit worried that it would be underwhelming, I guess, leading up to the event. But kudos to the team at Xbox because they put together an incredible showing. And even though everything I expected from first party ended up being there, it all came down to style and presentation. They just did a really good job presenting everything they had in a way that, and that's why like I don't work for Xbox. That's why like I don't make the big bucks because, I wouldn't have been able to put a show like that together, when you only have a certain amount of things that you can do. But I think like I was expecting, I don't know, I was expecting a good show, and what we got was a great show, and that's a testament to everybody who put the show together. So even though like there wasn't a surprise for me, I guess maybe the biggest surprise was just the pacing and how they positioned everything with Game Pass and how it all just flowed together. I guess you never truly can tell. Like when you just have a list of things that are going to be at the show and you're looking at that list and you're like, man, that doesn't really seem like it's going to be that good. And then there's a difference between seeing a list of things and then actually seeing a show based around those list of things. And we've seen it happen twice now, right? With last year's Xbox show and this year's Xbox show. Last year's Xbox show, we knew what was gonna be announced, and I was super pumped because I was like, man, we're gonna see Fable for the first time. We're gonna see Obsidian Skyrim game, right? We're gonna see the first look at Halo Infinite. We're gonna see State of Decay 3, right? We're gonna see all those games, and maybe even Perfect Dark's gonna be there. Like people were like, oh my god. But then you watch the show and it was like, all right, well, Halo Infinite didn't show the best. And all the other announcements were CGI, which you really don't know when you look at when you just have a list of stuff in front of you. So it's like, and your expectations are high because like you see these things and you're like, oh man. And then like, oh, well, that wasn't as what I thought it would go in my head, right? Like I thought it would play out differently. But then this year it was like, you write all these things out and you have them on a piece of paper and you're like, that doesn't seem like a good show. And then the opposite happens. And it's a really good show because of how they put everything together. Does that make sense, Miles?
No, I 100% agree. I'm in the exact same camp with you. Going to give a quick shout out to the 600 people hanging out with us. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, if you're new to the channel, we're live every Saturday with Xbox Chaturdays. If you're digging the show, hit that like button and share it out. Yeah, but to your point, Rand, Yeah, when you look at everything on paper, it's a lot less exciting. Let's be real. I was going to ask you, as being Randall Insider, if there was anything that surprised you, and you kind of touched on that here. And I'm in the same boat. I pretty much knew everything for the most part that was going to be shown. But I'm in the exact same camp as you. I did not expect Xbox to go this hard with the presentation, with the pacing, with the energy of this showcase, leaning into Xbox Game Pass, starting the show with Todd Howard coming out on stage and being like, you know what? Starfield, here it is. It's an Xbox exclusive. Moving on, let's go. And then just game after game after game after game. And so the cadence was incredible. And I think it really corrected a lot of the narrative that gets spun about what Xbox is doing, and more specifically where Xbox is struggling. And that's with games, and that's with, you know, the people who say that Xbox Game Pass doesn't have the biggest or best games. I think this year in particular, the showcase completely crushed any of those narratives. I don't, again, like if you love gaming, I don't know how you watch that Xbox show and say there's nothing for me there. And again, obviously, this is an Xbox show. There's Xbox bias here. You can do with that what you will. But I think objectively, even if I pull myself out of the Xbox space, because like I said, I have a PlayStation 5. I love my PlayStation. I love my Switch. I don't know how, if you are someone who does legitimately love gaming, loves the industry, looks forward to the big games each year, how you could watch the Xbox show and say, I have no interest in the Xbox ecosystem. I don't understand how you could do that objectively. Again, eliminating any of the fanboy narratives you want to spin there. And I think that is the most powerful statement from the Xbox show, because I talked about this previously on Twitter and it kind of exploded. I wasn't really expecting it, but I wanted a Series S to replace my One X in my living room. So I went to a GameStop and sat outside in line for like an hour and a half. And it was like 100 degrees, which was a mistake on my part. But I was sitting in line, had my headphones in, just kind of minding my own business. This dude sits next to me and he's hanging out. He turns over and says, "Hey, did you watch the Xbox E3 showcase?" And I kind of turned and smiled at him like, "You're goddamn right, I watched the Xbox showcase." And this dude just unwarranted starts talking about how like he is excited about Xbox. He has a PlayStation and he has a PS5, but he saw this showcase and it made him wait outside of a GameStop to get an Xbox. And then the dude behind him is chiming in saying, "Oh, dude, yeah, I'm in the same boat. Have a PS5, was kind of unsure about Xbox, watched this showcase, and I can't wait to play Forza Horizon 5. We got a mom and dad in this line talking about how Game Pass is awesome and how they're going to make their kids play Xbox because of Game Pass. So I think that experience for me really opened my eyes to how the average person off of Twitter, outside of our vocal bubbles, feel about how Xbox performed.
Was that a question, Miles?
No, just ending, letting that soak in for a second here.
Letting everybody just soak that in. Okay. I see what you're doing.
Sorry, I was just catching up on a couple super chats I'm gonna get to real quick here. Brian Hopkins says, "Evil Dead for life, a man of taste, a man of culture." Yes. Sorry if you follow me on Twitter, because for the foreseeable future, it will be a lot of talk about Evil Dead the game and Elden Ring. So I know a lot of people care about Elden Ring, but Evil Dead the game, less so. We got another super chat from Gunstar. What up, dude? He says, "Miles, we need some mods." Okay, corrected that. Saw you in the chat. You're a mod. A few other folks are mods. So shut down whatever you need to shut down in there.
Ooh, is something going down in the chat, Miles?
I mean, I was looking. I didn't see anything too spicy. Maybe some fanboy stuff a little bit, but yeah, it's all love here. This isn't an Xbox show, but this isn't a fanboy channel. Rand, what I want to know from you specifically, because I'm curious about how you feel.
You have a super chat here from Brandon Smith who says, "Where's the Gunk?
Oh,
where's the Gunk at, Miles? Did you not see this one?"
Oh, I missed that. Okay, thank you, Rand. Good eye.
We even have one from Gunstar saying, "Miles, we need some mods."
I did just get that one. Where is the Gunk? That is a good question. I was expecting the Gunk. I'm not gonna lie. I thought for sure some of those kind of indie games that were highlighted previously would make a big return, like the Gunk, Scorn, titles like that. But the Gunk was radio silent. We got an update on Scorn, kind of, sort of, from Xbox saying it's still targeting 2021, but No update on the Gunk. What are you excited about the Gunk? Because I am. I am stoked for the Gunk.
I mean, I'm intrigued by it, but like I would want to see what the gameplay of it is.
Okay.
I know it is interesting that it wasn't there and it was in their roadmap for games coming to Game Pass in 2021. So it's still on track for this year. I wonder when it's going to launch. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, for that game, I definitely would want to see what the gameplay loop is first.
Yeah. Because like we got some brief glimpses and it seems like it's going to be I don't know, like a Slime Rancher meets Bionic Commando type vibe is what I got from that trailer. Very mysterious, very kind of otherworldly. So I like the tone that they set up. But yeah, we haven't seen exactly what the loop is going to be for the Gunk. So that's fair. So, Rand, what I want to know from you, because I have some thoughts on this and I'm curious to get your take on this, but how did you feel about Redfall and the way it was shown ending the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase?
I mean, I love Arcane. I will be there day one for anything they make because they are one of my favorite developers. I'll be there day one on Deathloop on the PlayStation. I kind of wish Phil had bought Bethesda before those deals went down, but it doesn't matter. I'll be there Deathloop day one. I love Prey. I love the Dishonored series. I am down for whatever they make. I don't like. I think that trailer. The trailer was good. I think for some people, maybe it didn't really do a good enough job of explaining what type of game it is. Because even now, I see people being like, "It's just It's just a Left 4 Dead game with vampires." But when you actually kind of listen to some people, like Pete Hines and stuff talk about it, it's not really that. It's an immersive shooter, an open world immersive shooter that Arcane is known for. Like it's an Arcane game set in an open world with co-op. It's not like a Left 4 Dead style experience, and I don't really think that translated too well to that trailer. But then again, it's just an announcement trailer. They just want to know that hey, Redfall's coming. Here's a look at some of the characters, maybe some of the powers. We're fighting off vampires, and we'll get another look at the gameplay some other time, maybe later in the year, maybe early next year, because it's supposed to be out in a year, which is a short amount of time. So I guess maybe the trailer should have, I don't know, like explained the game a little bit better. Like I gave the show an 8. I rewatched it again and gave it an 8.5, and even now I'm kind of like leaning more towards a 9. And the only reason like it didn't reach a 10 for me or higher is because there wasn't like a big surprise. And I've stated this from like I don't know how long, but like CGI trailers are hard for me to generate excitement from because I know the game's not going to be that. And if we had gotten more from Redfall or more from Contraband or more from Starfield, it definitely would have rated higher for me. So it doesn't really matter what I think of Redfall at this moment or what it really is. All I care about is that we have an Arcane game coming next year. And that game is going to be, I think, incredible regardless. And if it really is just a regular Arcane game with all their kind of immersive stuff that they do, but set in an open world that you can play in co-op, then that's going to be amazing. But I think people are just going down that, and you can't blame them for doing it because the trailer presents it like it is, like, oh, this is just another Left 4 Dead game, but this time with vampires. Because not everybody's going to listen to Pete Hines, not everybody's going to listen to Phil Spencer or whatever. They're just going to, here's the trailer presented to me. Wow, that looks like Left 4 Dead with vampires. And, it's to some that's really exciting. To some it's like I'm kind of sick of the whole Left 4 Dead thing. So you can't blame people for not like trying to find more information about it. But considering we do podcasts and we're neck deep in all the news about everything that's going on, we kind of search for more info. We know that it's not really a Left 4 Dead meets vampire situation. It's more than that, and that's exciting to me. I don't know, Miles. What do you think? It was definitely, well, I was gonna say it was an interesting choice to end the show on, but it absolutely made sense in context of what the show was trying to achieve. Right? It's the Xbox and Bethesda show, and for a while there, everybody assumed that Bethesda would just have like a 30-minute segment to themselves where it would be like, okay, here's an hour of Xbox stuff, and then here's Bethesda. But it wasn't. They were kind of integrated into the show themselves to the point where Todd Howard starts the show. Not Phil Spencer, Todd Howard, right? They show Starfield off, and it's like, it's exclusive. And they bookend the show with this new game from Arcane, and it's like, it's exclusive as well. So in the context, it really made sense opening with a game from Bethesda that we know about, maybe one of the most highly anticipated games of next year in Starfield, right? And then closing with a brand new announcement from Bethesda. So if you look at the context of that, the announcement does make sense. I don't know. I want to know what you think.
Yeah. So, not to pat myself on the back here, but Xbox did exactly to the T what I wanted them to do with this showcase. Going into this, there was a lot of conversations of, is Xbox and Bethesda, are they even going to have one showcase? Is it going to be two separate showcases? And then when it was confirmed that there was going to be one showcase, people were like, are they going to have a hard divide? Are we going to have the Xbox section and are we going to have the Bethesda section? And with those conversations, my stance has always been no. If you were trying to integrate Bethesda and show the world in the biggest way possible that Bethesda is Xbox now, you need to have this interwoven in a natural, organic way. Seamlessly blend these trailers into the showcase. Don't have a hard divide. Don't try to separate this. And they started the show, like you said, Todd Howard comes out and he talks about Starfield. And then they cut to Sarah Bond talking about how this is not a partnership. Bethesda is Xbox. And I thought that was beautiful. That's what the world needed to hear. Everyone needed to hear that. Us in the community, we know how that was going to play out. We knew what that would look like, but the world needed to hear, and Xbox needed to be loud and proud about how that was going to play out for them. So yes, in hindsight, starting the show with Starfield and ending the show with Redfall, beautiful, beautiful way to showcase that the biggest Bethesda games are going to be Xbox exclusives. And if you want to play them, you're going to have to buy into Xbox, whether it be on PC, whether it be on console, or whether it just be on the Game Pass through cloud streaming. And I thought that was incredible. That being said, I'm in the same camp. I give this show about a 9. I loved it. Pacing was incredible. What we were shown was incredible. But the way Redfall was shown, to me, wasn't the big get hype moment. Reading about this game and what it was going to be sounds really cool. The interview after the fact where Pete Hines talks about how this is an immersive game. This is what you know and love about Arcane. We did not see that from the CG trailer. This is one that, in my opinion, should have been at the Game Showcase Extended on Thursday, hosted by the legend, Mr. Danger Zone himself, Paris Lilly. I thought that would have been a perfect game to show because that trailer, like you said, everyone is like, is this Left 4 Dead? Is this just like a first-person shooter co-op thing with vampires instead of zombies? Everyone was saying that. And like you said, not everyone's going to go watch the deep dives or read interviews. So yeah, the trailer for me wasn't that big get hype moment that I wanted. I wanted that big surprise. I wanted the big fan service thing. I wanted the reveal that kind of shattered the internet and it got people talking. And as amazing as Redfall sounds, and I do love the art style, I think that's going to be really compelling, I don't think that was it. So yeah, the show could have, if it had that one more like let's go massive moment, or if Redfall was shown in a different way potentially, I think it could have been the best show Xbox has ever had. But
what if the moment was basically them being exclusive? You make an argument that was the case because
that's true.
They led with Starfield, and even in the key art, what did it say? Xbox exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
What did Sarah Bond say as soon as she came out? Yes, it's exclusive. What did Phil Spencer say about Redfall before he announced it? It's exclusive. What did it say in the key art as soon as the trailer finished playing? It's exclusive, right? I think the show, granted, like the games are the games, but like I think Microsoft had a mission or at least a goal, and that's like we have all these people tuning in, and sure, me and you and everybody listening to this podcast knows the Bethesda games are Bethesda is owned by Microsoft and they're exclusive, but there's plenty of people that don't watch YouTube and are not on Twitter and don't know that. So their goal was like, we need to hammer home the message that if you like Bethesda games, then the only place you'll be able to play them is on Xbox. So in that regard, maybe that was the big quote unquote reveal, right? Because they really tried hammering it home. They really did, like multiple times, because they need to get the word out there that, hey, yo, Bethesda, they're on Xbox.
Let's go.
Right?
And I'd love that because Rand, I was so sick and so tired of the exclusivity conversations. Starfield has been one of the most annoying buildups ever because it hasn't been. What is Starfield? What is this game going to be? It's will Starfield?
Where can I play it?
Yeah, is this this is coming to PS5?
It's like, listen, I don't understand. Like Phil literally told everybody what was happening in the nicest way possible in March, right? And people still clinging on to this false hope that somehow these games will end up on the other platform, which speaks volumes to how wanted those games are.
Yeah,
right.
I agree there.
I mean, even you even have some outlets being like, well, maybe it still comes to play. Like, get over it. It's not coming to PlayStation, right? But back to your point about Redfall, I thought it was going to be something different because when the rumors started popping up that it was a vampire game, I thought we were going to play as a vampire.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I thought it was going to be, okay, we're going to play as a vampire, and it's going to be like Prey and Dishonored, where it's first person, and we need to drink blood to get health back, and we got vampiric powers, right? I didn't expect it to be, well, no, you're fighting vampires. Like, that kind of really threw me for a loop. Now, I will mention this, okay? And maybe I'm at fault for some of this, although I don't leak stuff. I'm not the type of person who does that. But I will say, if Contraband didn't come out, if Project Typhoon didn't leak, if Project Omen, Redfall didn't leak, if some of the other announcements or whatever, like if you didn't know about any of this stuff, maybe that is the big surprise, Miles. Like we're expecting, okay, here's Phil Spencer talking. He's like, oh, if he's doing one more thing, and he's like, here's one more thing, right? And it's like, it's Arcane, and then already you're like, oh, I already know what it is, right? Because we've heard that it's a vampire game, right?
Yeah.
So some of that surprise is already ruined for you. So let me ask you that question: are people like Miles Dompier to blame? Is the reason you're not excited because you find out all about this stuff in leaks beforehand? And would it be more exciting if you didn't know about it? So you'd be sitting there like, well, what game is it? Like, what's going on? Arcane? Wait a minute. They're making Deathloop. What? They have another game? And then you'd be like, whoa, what is this? Where you don't know what it is. So how much of the surprise thing is because of people putting information out there, Miles?
Exactly. And that's like people like you and I who are kind of invested in digging deep and finding out the answers and getting this stuff out there and talking about it. It's for us especially, some of those surprises are kind of spoiled a little bit. It is one thing to read it, like you said earlier, and another thing to see it. So there was still some energy and excitement to see these things come to life. But to your point, if you already know what's coming, if you already know what the big reveal is, the big twist is, it takes away that impact from I'll go back a few years ago when I was completely disassociated from the industry, but still someone who focused on it and watched videos and read about it. I could have gone into E3 this year as someone who wasn't aware of all these leaks and been stoked because, like you said, Contraband was new. Redfall was new. Seeing Starfield gameplay, there was a lot of new cool stuff that was shown. And I think if I hadn't known about it, maybe the show would have been better for me personally. But that being said, I still think how Xbox presented this and what they showed, generally speaking, was pretty incredible. So I'm going to get to a super chat from Cosmic Fro here. Come fall between Xbox and other platforms, do you think Xbox will move the needle enough to budge them, or do they go different avenues? Great show, Miles. Appreciate that, Cosmic Fro. So let me interpolate your super chat here. So come fall between Xbox and other platforms, do you think Xbox will move the needle enough to budge them? So correct me if I'm wrong here, but the way I'm interpreting this question is, do you think that this fall, people who play on Switch primarily or people who play on PlayStation primarily will look at Xbox and say, I need an Xbox now, or I need to be invested in the Xbox ecosystem? So I'm going to ask you that, and I'm going to tie this into a question I was going to ask you originally. What was the one game from the Xbox showcase you think had the most people saying, I need an Xbox?
The one game that people were like, I need an Xbox for?
Or the one game that people are like, I need to subscribe to Game Pass for. What was the
I don't think it's necessarily one game. I think it's like the breadth of content, where it's like everything they showed was essentially on Game Pass, and it was like, okay, well, maybe it's time for me to subscribe to the service and I can play all these things. I mean, obviously Halo is going to speak to certain people. Starfield, when it come out, will definitely speak to certain people. But there was a game for almost everybody. Small indie titles, party games, right? Hades is coming finally, right? You had a breadth of content, and that's what it really is. It's like, okay, it's Game Pass is a big part of Xbox at this point, right?
Yep.
And they position it in such a way where it's almost like you are missing out if you don't have Game Pass. Look at everything that's coming that we're just announcing during this show, not to mention all the things that we've already announced, right? So I think people are getting their head like, okay, we're starting to see some games from Xbox. We see Forza's coming. We see Psychonauts is coming. Flight Sim is almost here. Back for like you start to be like, oh man, there's tons of like, okay, that's $10 a month, but these games are like so if I just wanted to play like Halo campaign and also Forza, that's $120. Like I might as well just subscribe to Game Pass and play this other stuff because that's the same amount of money. And then you think to yourself, like, oh my God, well, they didn't even show Hellblade or Fable or any of these other games that they showed last year. And you're like, man, they have a lot in the pipeline. I think it was more of a show about their. It wasn't necessarily about one game, I guess, is what I'll say. Like for some, sure, it's about Halo, 100%. But I think the overall I think when you look at like how people feel about the show and how like you look at the IGN polls and Jeff Keighley polls, I think it was the overall presentation. I think it was because everything was in Game Pass and those games look quality, and I think also people came to the realization that Xbox does have a ton in the works. So if I do jump in now, that I'm going to have stuff to play for every month for knows how long, right? And that was, I think, maybe the key to the show, or at least why people liked it so much. It's like finally the strategy of Game Pass is paying off in the larger view of things. And I don't know, it's tough to say because like, like I'm all in on Xbox regardless. And sure, like one game speaks louder to me, so it's hard for me to kind of speculate on like what someone who doesn't really care about Xbox or who's just kind of on the peripheral would think about like, because like I'm already, it's like everything's like, man, they showed all these cool stuff and Game Pass is amazing service. Like what would be somebody who isn't really already all in kind of think about all this? But I honestly really do think it's Game Pass. I think Game Pass is changing the perception of Xbox everywhere, where it's just like it's such an incredible thing And finally, with Microsoft's first party starting to put out content, it's like it seems like a no-brainer. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some excellent points. I think the most important thing of this showcase was the fact that Xbox is showing you loudly and clearly that if you support this ecosystem, that if you buy into Xbox, you buy into Xbox Game Pass, you will be rewarded with the best value in gaming. And I know that's marketing cliche and that's a buzzword and whatever. There's maybe some hyperbole there at one point in time, but I think this showcase proved that undeniably the value proposition, if you love gaming, if you're invested in gaming, is so hard to ignore. I have people who, have a PlayStation, have a Series X, who would prefer to buy the game on PlayStation, but are going to play it through Game Pass because of that value proposition. So that is huge. That moves the needle a lot. And like you said, we haven't seen Hellblade 2. We haven't seen Fable. We haven't seen Avowed. Imagine a world where we're getting like 4 games of that caliber in 1 year, on top of these third-party partnerships, on top of a bunch of other smaller scale first-party Xbox titles. We're going to get to a world a few years from now where every other month we're getting some big Xbox game. They've committed one AAA. They said one major exclusive in Game Pass every 3 months. That is the short-term plan. But outside of those major AAA games, we're going to get a lot of first-party stuff from Xbox as well. And so that is exciting. Seeing all of these titles, seeing new titles being revealed, when we know there are 4, 5, 6 other titles that we haven't seen yet or we have seen that aren't out, and knowing that those are all coming to Game Pass day one, that value, it's impossible to ignore. And again, like there's the narratives of Xbox Game Pass and renting games and blah, blah, that kind of stuff like that. What Game Pass is doing is fundamentally changing the gaming industry in the same way that things like Netflix, Spotify, music streaming services change those respective industries. But the difference here, you have complaints with Spotify. You have artists speaking out about how Spotify is damaging their income. Game Pass, you have the polar opposite. I sat down with the developers of Moonglow Bay, which is a small indie team launching a title into Xbox Game Pass. They had glowing things to say about working with Xbox and launching a game in Xbox Game Pass. They were stoked that, people, whether or not they're buying the game or not, get to play and experience this thing that they spent years of their lives on. And that is huge. When you have people behind the scenes shouting the praises of Xbox Game Pass, that is incredible for the future of that service. And it means the service is only going to get better. And this E3 showcase was a testament to Xbox's commitment to making sure that Xbox Game Pass is the best value and will remain the best value in gaming. And Microsoft, I will be taking that check now. Thank you.
Yeah, you sound like a marketer for Game Pass.
I get paid
that's how some people say.
I get paid 15 cents every time I see Game Pass. So Game Pass. No, just kidding.
Well, it just really seemed like this T3 was the coming together of everything that Microsoft has been working towards, like Game Pass, right? That's been started in 2017, right? Working its way towards that moment in the sun where everybody kind of looks at it and is like, you need that, right? And you could already say maybe it's already there. They announced 18 million back in December of last year. There was reports that maybe it was around 22 million in April. It seemed like it was almost doubling what it had done the previous year. But like there was still some doubts. There were still like, well, you're not getting AAA games day one, right? Like it's still just Xbox games and older games. But then like the narrative switched. It was like MLB The Show, Outriders, right? You even got like Dark Alliance, which is launching in there this month. But then you watch the show and it's like there's Starfield, and that's exclusive and it's coming to Game Pass. Oh, okay, there's Halo Infinite. It's coming. Forza Horizon 5 looks incredible. Voted the most anticipated game of E3. That's coming to Game Pass. You look at like August, you have Psychonauts 2, Hades, 12 Minutes all coming. July, you got The Ascent and Flight Sim, right? October, Back for Blood, and not to mention other stuff. So it's like, finally, it seemed like it's risen up to the point where all the things that Microsoft has been doing have coalesced into this one moment where it's like their coming out party. Like people realize you have the hardware, right? Look how good some of these games look with the Series S, the Series X, right? Oh, okay. Game Pass as a service is starting to get the attention of people outside of the hardcore community, right? Your first parties are starting to deliver. Like you got a bunch of games this year, you're gonna have some huge games next year, and then 2023 you're gonna have even more. And then your cloud stuff is all coming together. Like, hey, you're on iOS, you're on Android, you're on Windows 10 PC. You're talking about being on TVs and smart apps and streaming sticks. You're talking about, hey, if you're on the Xbox One, you'll actually be able to play these next gen games because we're going to put it almost seems like you can see the vision that Xbox has been talking about for a while now, or that we have been basically predicting that their vision is going to be in videos and podcasts. Like it's all starting to come together, and other people are realizing that. But then it all comes down to Team Xbox nailing the presentation and getting that info out there in an appealing way to people to understand that. And it looked like this year was the year where it was like a combination of first party announcements and Game Pass things where people finally could understand the full impact of what Xbox is an ecosystem and what Game Pass can do to really drive engagement to Xbox really means. And I think that really kind of stood out among everything else,
Yeah, no, excellent points. Yeah, things are looking really good for Xbox, and a lot of the struggles and narratives that they've been battling to overcome the last several years, and a lot of these promises that they've been making to us for the last several years, we're starting to see them now, and that's exciting. Quick shout out to the 600 people rocking with us. I'm going to get to some super chats, and then we're going to transition into our final major topic of the show, which is going to be some of the acquisition buzz. Where are the acquisitions and what the future of these acquisitions might look like? So if you're excited about that, hit the like button, share it out, and then Yodani has a super chat here that says the current drip, dip, drop cadence Microsoft has is excellent. We knew marketing was a weak point. Now content creators can do some of the work for them. The one first party game per quarter needs highlighted now. So yes, like I talked about earlier in the show, Microsoft's marketing cadence since the launch of the Series X and S has been perfect, in my opinion, absolutely nailing this constant message that Xbox deserves to be in the headlines for X, Y, and Z. And so what are your thoughts on that, Brand? Do you think the one major first party game per quarter is being talked about enough?
No, probably not. But that they need to do it before people believe them, right? Like it's okay. Them coming out and saying our goal is one game a quarter, and that's like awesome. All right, and if you want people to more talk about it, then you need to deliver on that. You didn't deliver on it this year because you didn't release any games yet for this year. Yep. Sure, you have Flight Sim company. Like, yeah, okay, you back ended the year, which is something that I've been on Microsoft's case for a long time. They used to do this a lot, and they still do it. It's like they backload the entire calendar year, where it's like everything they release is released at the end of the year, and it's like, well, what about the rest of the freaking year? What about the other 9 months of the year? Like, it was like the only months that mattered to Microsoft were essentially September, October, and November, and they would release all their games in there, and people would be like in April, be like, well, I want something to play, and Microsoft's like later in the year, so now they're like, we want a game a quarter, which is great, and that's something really cool to strive for, and that's just like a least scenario where it's like, you're going to have more than that, but like people really won't pick up on that until you actually start delivering on that promise. So when you've done a year where you've actually had a big game release in, January, February, March, and then another one release in April, May, and June, and then another one release in July, August, September, and then another one released in October, November, December, and then do it again the following year, then yeah, I think more people will probably talk about it. But until you actually do it at least once, don't expect a lot of people to really talk about it.
Yeah, and I agree. Microsoft has constantly been raked through the coals when it comes to saying one thing and doing another, or saying one thing and never doing it. So we're starting to see them deliver on these promises. And I think once they have that year, and they're going to market it. If they know next year is going to be that year, they're going to tell you in January, boom, 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 boom. These are the 4 games, the big AAA games we are releasing this year. We told you we were doing this, and here's how we're doing it. So if they have that and that starts next year, those conversations are going to ramp up again. It would be awesome if that is their cadence. I don't know that is the case, but I would love for Microsoft to kick off 2022 delivering on that promise. Super chat from that Arjun says Redfall will be a Left 4 Dead style Destiny-like games as a service game, which will expand like Destiny and Sea of Thieves games. So we keep on renewing. Do you think that that's true, Rand?
That I think that's what Redfall is?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the idea that somehow they made this game to, because I mean I would assume he means renewing, because renewing your Game Pass
like
membership,
keeping you
right?
coming back to it, I think.
But the thing is like they've been working on that game for years, well before the Xbox acquisition. So whatever they made had no input whatsoever on. Well, Xbox had no input whatsoever, and even if you look at like what Pete Hines is saying about the acquisition, it's like Xbox has basically come in there and been like, don't change anything, make the games you want to make, you know. So I don't think that is something to be, because I have seen some people say like, oh, it's a co-op game because Microsoft needed that for Game Pass, but it's like, but they just acquired them, and that game's literally coming out next year. The game's been in development for 3 to 4 years already at this point. Like, it's already what it's going to be, and that with no Microsoft involvement. That's just because some people just be like, oh, like, I don't know. There's this thing where it's like every game or only single player games are somehow good or something. Like co-op games are inherently bad or something along that nature. So they see a co-op game and they're like, oh, well, it's a Game Pass. It has to be for Game Pass. It's like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, they've been making this game for years. And as far as we know, like, even Matt Booty's like, we don't dictate what type of games our studios make. They make the games they want to make.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where people don't seem to realize that developers also love and want to play games. And there are so many developers who have this dream of making a really cool co-op multiplayer game that they can play with their coworkers and play with their friends. So it's not this evil, nefarious thing where they have to make a co-op game because on paper we can do this and we can sell this and this will be the engagement. Sure, maybe there is some of that stuff behind the scenes, but fundamentally, I think this team just wanted to make a co-op game. And I really can't stand when people write that off, because I prefer co-op games. I would, if this was only a single player thing, I would be a lot less interested. I'll be frank and honest. I don't have any problem with single player stuff, but if you can give me a compelling experience that can be played single player and add multiplayer to it, I don't see the fault there. I don't understand where people's criticisms or kind of cynicism comes when it comes to the fact that Redfall is a co-op game. All right. Rand Althor 19. Going in to the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase, the weeks leading up to this big game showcase, the first time that Bethesda and Xbox are coming together to show what they have on the table, on the slate. There was a lot of conversations about acquisitions ahead of this event. A lot of people were saying 5 teams. Xbox Game Studios is going from 23 studios to 28. There was a lot of energy and excitement and people in the community talking about acquisitions. I believe a Randall Thor 19 was 99% sure that there was going to be one acquisition announced at the
Yeah,
Xbox and Bethesda
that's
Game
why you don't
Showcase.
say 100%, ladies and gentlemen.
You wiggle room, margin of error. Don't ever hard commit to anything ever. Pro tip by Rand himself here. So yeah, I know the conversations were intense. You, Jeff Grubb, a lot of others in the community were talking about the acquisitions and what might be shown at this showcase. And I was seen as the downer, Rand. I was the guy
You're
dumping on
crushing people's
dreams.
dreams, Miles.
I was dumping on dreams because all I said, and this is how I felt the entire time, is that why if you're Xbox, are you having the Xbox and Bethesda branded game showcase? Why would you announce a new team there? It doesn't seem like the right place to do it. We don't even fully understand the messaging of what Bethesda joining Xbox means, but you're also going to try to add more acquisitions and drive the narrative there at this showcase. It just didn't seem like the right fit. But I do want to talk about Avalanche, and I do want to talk about Contraband, which we did see at the Xbox Game Showcase, and it was announced.
Did we really, though?
We saw a table, so we saw a table and a logo, so that's
we
something.
had a Steely Dan song play.
We got some Steely Dan ripping, so that was the one, correct me if I'm wrong here, that you thought was the most likely, and you were the most confident we would see announced at the Game Showcase, correct?
Yes.
And so
yeah, that was the one that I felt pretty confident was going to happen. The other ones I even during the Xbox 2 when the hype was flowing and when the Xbox shrimp from Jez was out there, right? When all the other ones to me just was like, no, this is wishful thinking. Like, I know people like, oh man, oh my god, NetherRealm and Rocksteady and Crytek and IO Interactive, like, I don't know, like, it all just kind of felt like pie in the sky. Like, yes, Avalanche just made sense because I was like, we knew they were working on a game for Xbox, right? So I was just like, and it wasn't just one person whispering or telling me stuff. Like, it was multiple people, all sort of hearing the same thing. Now, I don't know if it was like how like some you tell somebody something and then they go tell somebody else and then that person then comes back to you and is like, I'm hearing this, so it's like your own thing that you told somebody coming back to you from somebody else. But it really did feel like there was a lot of smoke to the fire, or a lot of smoke out there regarding Avalanche, and I was just like, yeah, I think something's gonna happen, and nothing happened. So sometimes you things are wrong or things are misheard. Like, I'm not an insider. I always wince when people call me Randall Insider, like, because it's just I'm
Insider
not, like,
confirms.
I'm not whatsoever. It's just sometimes you hear stuff and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. And I probably should have kept my mouth shut, but people kept on pushing me, being like, how do you feel about this? Is it happening? I'd be like, yeah, I feel pretty good, but yeah, who knows? Like, there's even some talk today that maybe they acquired them. They just haven't announced them yet, but I doubt that very much. Even after it didn't happen on Sunday, people were like, well, they're going to announce it on Thursday with Paris. And I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to announce that. Maybe it's just like, you know what? They're working towards it. We know these acquisitions can be tricky things. They can fall apart pretty easily. It is the end of the fiscal year for Microsoft, getting close, and maybe they have extra money to spend. As Jeff Grubb says, like, inflation's going to hit hard next year, right? And Microsoft is going to lose. Maybe they feel it's better to spend the money now and get that money working from you than to sort of lose it sitting in a bank. And we know Microsoft wants to grow. I mean, they literally talked about it in the Thursday press briefing before E3 about the one game, for Game Pass a quarter, and how they would do that by hiring for their core studios that they have and then making acquisitions. Bill's talked about it. Satya's talked about it. Like, they're still looking. So it's like, at some point, it is going to happen. But a lot of people let the hype, and I'm usually the person that puts my foot down on this stuff. I'm usually the dream crusher.
Yeah.
I'm usually the dream crusher on this. You are the dream crusher on this one. Because I did feel like, no, they could easily announce. Because in my mind, I was like, okay, if they have Avalanche, Like, you could easily just be like, we're welcoming Avalanche to the family, and here's a look at their game, and it would totally fit into what they were going with the show. At least in my mind, before we saw the show, I was like, that makes sense. But like all these other ones, like, and welcome NetherRealm, and like, no, at least Avalanche would have something to show. So I kind of felt that did fit, but it didn't. Maybe Xbox wants to see how working with Avalanche works out before they make a big offer. I don't know. I mean, but like Jeff Grubb says, he heard it from people who aren't in the same circles. That definitely
Hmm.
seem like there's a lot of smoke around this one. Uh, I so it's like, yeah, it's like I was surprised. You talk about what surprised you at the E3 show. Avalanche not getting acquired was a surprise because I firmly expected that to happen, and it didn't. And I was just like, oh, okay, interesting. Okay, we'll have to. But yeah, all the other stuff like Ion Interactive, Crytek, NetherRealm, Rocksteady, I never believed that for a minute. Not to say that they could never acquire those studios, but like all at the same show, I was like, no, 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 no.
No,
Uh,
definitely
but
not.
there's plenty of time. They don't have to announce anything at E3. It could all just be about games and Game Pass, and they could do a studio announcement and a blog post at whatever time in just a random Tuesday in a random month and still get a lot of traction, Like
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean,
Yeah, look at
we know the acquisitions will happen. I mean, they've been upfront about it. Come on. They've talked about it from the highest person at Microsoft to the person who leads first party. It's like it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And, expecting things to get done by a certain date is maybe foolhardily thinking that, but yeah.
yeah, no, there is a lot of energy, and I talked about this in a video ahead of the showcase, uh, and it was following the kind of press meeting that Xbox had ahead of the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase. They basically gave us a better idea of the teams that they would target. So there was a lot of speculation, and it was all over the place. Rocksteady, NetherRealm, Crytek, whatever. Any studio you could think of, people were throwing it out there to see if it would stick and see if somebody had heard from somebody that this was happening. But if we're looking at what we know is happening, which is Avalanche is making Contraband in partnership with Xbox Game Studios, and we know that IO Interactive is making Project Dragon in partnership with Xbox Game Studios, which is going to be something out of their wheelhouse, a new IP. We know those things are happening. Xbox has told us that they are looking at teams that they have a good relationship with, and B, have a track record of basically putting out successful new IP. So again, I'm going to preface this by saying this isn't something I've heard, and this isn't me confirming anything or leaking anything, but I imagine that Avalanche and IO Interactive would be the two most likely of those five that we're circling for those two reasons specifically. And maybe there's a world where the reason there is so much smoke and energy behind those teams in particular, because those were the first two, is because we know they're working on these first party titles in partnership with Xbox Game Studios. And maybe, again, maybe, this isn't confirmation of anything, maybe part of these contracts, part of these partnerships are if both parties are happy. Let's say Microsoft and Avalanche put out Contraband. Both parties are happy. There's an acquisition clause in place. So if this goes well, they say, all right, we're part of Xbox Game Studios going forward. Again, I don't know that that's the case, but that could be one of the reasons there was so much smoke and energy behind Avalanche specifically, because Avalanche did reveal an Xbox exclusive at the Xbox and Bethesda game showcase. And I think personally, Avalanche and IO are the two most likely for those reasons. Crytek, you could rope in there as well because of the history with Rise, which some people would argue was a successful new IP, some wouldn't. But yeah, I think those two are the most likely. The NetherRealm Rocksteady is interesting because of the way WB played out. And when all of those conversations were ramping up, I was talking about how the value of WB is not worth it. That's why nobody bought them, because you don't get that much with WB. You get a lot of licensed properties, which you can't really do much with to monetize. Microsoft wants the studios. Microsoft wants the teams that can make new IP in their wheelhouse. And let's say you snag NetherRealm. NetherRealm gets to make Killer Instinct. Microsoft wants to make Killer Instinct. They need a team. That would be hype. That would be awesome. Rocksteady, proven themselves to make incredible games. New IP, but based on franchises. So if you're pulling from that pool, and if I was Xbox, those are the teams I'd be grabbing. So I understand where the conversations were, and I understand why people would have been hyped about it. But I think in the short term, look at IO and look at Avalanche, and let's see how their games do in partnership with Xbox. Let me get to a super chat really quick that I missed. Okay. All right. Achievement. With AA being easier to make, is ID at Xbox is going to be a big deal this gen. Sorry. Making a game on Xbox GDK, make it accessible to console, cloud, and PC. Yeah, I mean, development is easier than ever on Xbox, so I think it's safe to say we'll definitely get more ID at Xbox titles and more AA games kind of launching in the service. So Rand, with all of this acquisition talk, I'm going to ask you two questions here. I'm going to ask you who you think is the most likely next acquisition. If Microsoft was to announce an acquisition this year, what would that team be? That's question one. Question two, what is the dream Randall Thor studio that Microsoft acquires?
I still think there's a chance Avalanche gets acquired this year. I mean, maybe something along the lines of Warner Brothers, because we know that I think Xbox is interested. A lot of people are probably interested in NetherRealm. That's probably like the crown jewel, especially if you can get Mortal Kombat from the sale.
Yeah.
So, you're right about the Warner Brothers things. It's like the reason it hasn't been bought is because it's really tied up in IP licensing. And it's, you don't own Batman and you don't own all that stuff. So if you did buy them, you'd have to work something out with the people who do. And it's not like Bethesda where like you buy Bethesda and you own everything immediately 100% day one. And you can start putting in that stuff into Game Pass and you can immediately start making money and all of the money off of, sales of their games where like, say you bought Rocksteady, their Batman games. Are you allowed to put the Batman games in Game Pass? Like, because you'd have to talk to the license holder, right? And then they start selling their game. Well, you probably got to give a kickback to the license holder, right? That's why, like, you have all these big people interested in Warner Brothers, but none of them have bitten on it. And the question is why? Because there's some great studios there. I mean, maybe there's a little bit pushback on why hasn't Rocksteady released a game in 7 years? People might be wondering, like, what's up with that? What's
going on there?
Rocksteady is one of the best developers out there, and they were releasing Game of the Year contenders on the 360 with Arkham City and Arkham Asylum, and then they released Arkham Knight in 2015, and nothing since then. Nothing. Like, what happened? So I'm sure if any publisher is really interested in Warner Brothers, they'd be like wanting like, what is the problem with Rocksteady? Because to me, you ask about dream studios, Rocksteady be one of those dream studios. I am huge fan of Rocksteady, but I definitely do have to caution and be like, what's up with that?
What's going on over there?
Why has it been so long for you to make a game? Like, and if you're potentially buying them, you'd want to know too. Is there problems at the studio? Is there problem with studio leadership? It was Warner Brothers interfering too much before you spend your hard-earned money, right? IO Interactive would also be a one I would really like because I love the Hitman franchise. I think IO Interactive is amazing studio. though we're gonna keep this realistic, right? We can't just be like, well, get the Rockstar and have them make Grand Theft Auto, right? Where it's just
Yeah,
like,
there we go.
or like bring Bungie back home, baby, right? Like, even though that may have been realistic in the past, but doubt it anymore. Um, trying to think. Like you Remedy. I'm always a big fan of Remedy. So like I definitely, if Microsoft would acquire them, that would be, fantastic. I'm a big fan of their games, but it definitely seems like Xbox and Remedy, their paths are kind of divergent at this point.
Yeah, it
Um
seems like it.
I don't know, I'd have to have a list of like independent studios in front of me. Like Obsidian, I think, was a great one. Like obviously Sony getting Insomniac is maybe like the deal of the century for them, with how much like Insomniac is carrying the PS5 launch at this point.
That team is
Um,
crushing it, and
Ninja Theory was a great one because I adored Hellblade, and Devil May Cry was phenomenal. Um, yeah, it's just there's a ton of studios out there that could work. But you're right about like Avalanche and IO maybe making sense. Microsoft already working games on with them, and maybe like, hey, we like the experience. You like the experience? Yeah, we really did. How would you
let's
come work with us? Oh yeah, no problem. Let's sign on this dotted line for a lot of money. We'll have to wait and see on that. I don't know what would be yours, Miles? Like what is your dream studio?
Dream Studio. I mean, obviously, this is pie in the sky. This is Miles's wildest fantasy. From Software. If Xbox
Oh yeah,
is trying to build up their presence in
they
Japan,
already own though.
they are owned. There is a parent company to From Software. Yes. So I'm just saying, pie in the sky. That doesn't mean that the parent company wouldn't be willing to sell off in this fantasy. This is dream. This is get hype dream moment. From Software joins Xbox Game Studios. Xbox in one swoop locks down probably the most important modern RPG developer. I would go as far as to say that From Software, in my opinion, is probably the most important RPG development studio that currently exists right now. That is how passionately I feel about From Software and what they've been able to do, and how consistent. How many teams can you point to that are as consistent as From Software when it comes to delivering hit after hit after hit after hit? Sure, a lot of their games follow the same formula, so it's easy to take that idea and kind of reshape it, reskin it, tweak things here and there. But that being said, it is so rare in this day and age for a team to come out in that big of a way and be this beloved and be this consistent. Elden Ring, new IP, will be a big test. From what we've seen of the trailer, it seems like it's going to be incredible. It seems like people are going to love it. But yeah, if I'm going Dream Studio, it's From Software. If I'm going Dream Acquisition as a whole, Capcom. Capcom is the one I'm trying to will into existence because Xbox wants to improve its notoriety in Japan. Capcom, imagine Game Pass with Capcom. Imagine Street Fighter. Imagine Monster Hunter. Imagine Devil May Cry. Imagine Resident Evil. Imagine all of those massive, beloved franchises launching day one on Xbox Game Pass and being Xbox exclusive. You talk about Bethesda being a big deal and how much that kind of disrupted and rocked the industry. I think Capcom would be even bigger. I think the amount of outrage from some camps would be way more intense with Capcom than with Bethesda. So yeah, those are my two: Dream Studio, FromSoft; Dream Acquisition, Capcom. Let's do it. Big Papa Phil, get that paycheck out. Let's see.
Some people are like Sega, right? Like Sega would be the one they want. I'm like, Sega's boring. Capcom's where it's at.
Yeah, see? Okay, not to throw shade at the
I mean?
Sega camp. Sega would be fine. Sega would be really important for Japan.
No, we're throwing shade at the Sega
but
camp.
Capcom would slam dunk and then bury the dunked corpse of Sega when it comes to headlines, in my opinion.
You know what also I would like? Not all of Square Enix, but Xbox acquiring their Western operation.
Oh, just the Western
So like
sector.
Eidos Montreal,
Okay.
Crystal Dynamics,
Okay.
getting Tomb Raider, getting Deus Ex, getting Just Cause. Like they can keep the Japanese stuff, but like Xbox is taking on the Western operation. you know?
That would be interesting. There's a lot of people who want Square to have a better relationship with Xbox in a lot of ways. The Western side seems fine. We got Outriders obviously there, but it's really the Eastern side, the Japanese side, where they're struggling. You look at Legend of Mana, the remaster of one of my favorite games of all time is coming to every single platform except for Xbox. So this isn't PlayStation money hatting. This isn't anything like that. This is Square Enix being, we don't care about bringing this game to Xbox because we don't think it's worthwhile. And that sucks for a lot of people who love JRPGs. The Western sector would be an easier get, I feel like, but I feel like the Eastern sector would be a bigger deal because so many of their biggest RPGs skip Xbox completely or skip Xbox for years. And it kind of sucks if you are a big JRPG fan. Are you a big JRPG fan, Rand?
I'm not really, Miles. No, unfortunately.
I'm kind of,
Not anymore.
Yeah, I'm in the same, but I used to love JRPGs, used to play them so much. PS1 is kind of honestly where I peaked with JRPGs. But at the same time, I understand people's love for it, and I understand that Xbox has not done a good job bringing the biggest and best JRPGs to Xbox. So they need to correct it for the JRPG fans out there. And it only personally affects me when they start remastering and remaking these old-ass games that I want to play. And I'm like, wait a second. I didn't care before, but now I care. So I get it. Well, Rand, we're at about 2 hours here, so I'm going to start wrapping it up. If you guys have any final questions before we depart, start dropping those in the chat. Huge shout out to the 600 people still rocking with us. This has been a blast. If you dug the show, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And Rand, one more time for all the lovely folks watching, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Xbox, RandallThor19.
Oh.
Or on YouTube at youtube.com/RandallThor19. See? One name everywhere. One name on Xbox, on YouTube. Twitter, same thing, RandallThor19, but with underscores in between the empty spaces because they don't allow they don't allow spaces. RandallThor19 on PlayStation, but it's all just on YouTube, so all the links are there.
Yeah, and like I said at the start of the show, I'm sure most people here know Rand. Rand is a legend in the Xbox space. But show this dude some love.
True.
He tries to say that people only tune into Xbox 2 because
That's
of
true.
Jez.
I did a poll, and Jez was basically winning.
Dang. Okay. Well, I mean, despite what the evidence may suggest,
you should do polls, Miles.
Yeah, I should. I'll think of some polls to do. But I think you're an awesome person, Rand. I think you're a fun dude. Love hanging out with you. Stoked to have you on the show. And I think Xbox 2 is a hard 50-50 split. All right,
hard 50-50.
Drop some hashtag Team Rand in here. As much as I love Jez,
this is my second time being on the Xbox Chaturdays, I believe.
Yeah, this is number 2. So you liked it enough to come back, which is good. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, next time we come on, maybe I'll be on camera, or maybe not. I don't know. With Colton and the Grubster trying to peer pressure me into doing this. I'm not one to fall to peer pressure very easily. In fact, it makes me want to do the opposite.
Okay, a contrarian.
Not conform.
Okay, then
you know what I mean?
Rand, don't ever get on camera. Don't ever come on
what,
Xbox
Miles? I'm thinking about
Chaturdays.
getting on camera.
Okay, good. Yeah, let's do a month out. Let's do it. See, look, we got Team Rand. We got Team Rand in the chat. People are saying, Gunstar is saying that the poll was a 50-50 split, Rand. You can't.
It was. I intentionally cut it as soon as it hit 50-50.
Just no, evidence says it's 50-50. Shut it down. Shut it down. Super chat from Brian Hopkins. Thanks for the show. You guys are great. Really appreciate the time and effort you guys put in. Thanks, mods, for keeping things calm in the chat as well. Yes, to the new mods, appreciate you. I know I saw some kind of console war-y type stuff, but I don't engage with that because the vibe of the show is supposed to be fun. We're here to talk about games, what we like about games. Obviously, this is an Xbox show, but I don't think we really said anything negative about PlayStation the entire time. So yes, if you're taking offense to Xbox doing well, take a second back and reevaluate why you feel that way fundamentally, and meditate. That's what I would recommend. Rand, do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap this show up, my dude?
Let's see. Anything else to say? No, I think I'm good. I think we left it all on the court, Miles.
That's what it's all about here on Xbox Chaturdays. Again, we're here every Saturday. Appreciate y'all hanging out live, and we will see you next week. Take care, everybody.